Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that everything you thought you knew about the world was about to change, not years from now, but within the next year. What if the very foundations of society, our economies, governments, and even our understanding of reality, were on the verge of a massive shift? And what if someone had already foreseen it? Not a conspiracy theorist, not a storyteller, but a renowned psychic, one whose past predictions had been disturbingly accurate. A person who foresaw events so precisely that even world governments took notice, some trying to suppress her warnings, others quietly preparing behind closed doors. Now, as 2025 approaches, one of her most chilling prophecies is resurfacing. A vision so unsettling that it forces us to ask, are the signs already here? And if they are, what do they mean for us? The prophecy speaks of three major warnings: a mysterious signal from deep space, an economic collapse that reshapes global power, and a final reckoning, one that humanity is completely unprepared for. But prophecies are not absolute. Buddhism teaches that the future is shaped by our choices, our actions, and our collective karma. Instead of fearing what's ahead, the real challenge is to prepare with awareness, wisdom, and resilience. In today's deep exploration, we will examine this prophecy through the lens of Buddhist philosophy, uncovering four critical insights that can help us navigate an uncertain future, not with fear, but with clarity and strength. But before we begin, ask yourself, will you face 2025 as a passive observer, or will you take action to shape your own destiny? If you believe awareness is the first step to transformation, like this video to stay informed. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, because facing uncertainty is easier together. Comment below with your thoughts. Do you think these signs are real, or just coincidences? And if you want to stay ahead of what's coming, subscribe, and turn on notifications. The more we explore, the more we uncover. Now, let's dive in. And remember, fear only controls you if you let it. The real question is not what will happen in 2025, but what you will do when it happens. Part 1. The unveiling of the prophecy. The prophecy's origins trace back to a secluded monastery in Bulgaria, where, in 2023, a discovery sent shockwaves through the small academic and spiritual circles that first came into contact with it. Hidden within the monastery's archives was a collection of texts, some ancient, some relatively modern, compiled by monks who had dedicated their lives to preserving knowledge that might have otherwise been lost to history. Among these documents was a set of prophetic writings attributed to a psychic who had died in 1982, a figure who had lived largely in obscurity yet had, in death, begun to gain a reputation for her unsettlingly accurate visions of the future. It was her words that painted a picture of coming upheaval, warning of a series of events that would culminate in a moment of reckoning for humanity. One of her most chilling predictions, recorded decades before the tragic events of September 11, 2001, described the fall of the twin giants. At the time, the phrase was cryptic, dismissed as poetic ambiguity. But after the attacks on the World Trade Center, those who revisited her words could not ignore the eerie precision of the description. Yet, even that prophecy paled in comparison to what she had foreseen for 2025. Unlike her previous writings, this particular vision was fragmented, disjointed, and in places, almost illegible, as if the process of documenting what she had seen had left her physically and mentally drained. Some theorists suggest that what she witnessed was too overwhelming for human comprehension, that she struggled to put into words the gravity of what lay ahead. Others argue that she deliberately obscured parts of the message, fearing that too much clarity would either cause widespread panic or accelerate the very events she sought to warn against. Regardless of the reason, her final prophecy was clear about one thing: 3 signs would precede an event that would reshape the world. The first sign, she wrote, would come not from this earth, but from the stars. This has led many to believe that some kind of cosmic event, a signal from deep space, perhaps even contact with an extraterrestrial intelligence, would serve as the first harbinger of change. Skeptics argue that unexplained cosmic phenomena are nothing new, but those who study prophecy and esoteric knowledge insist that this particular signal would be unlike anything previously recorded. In December 2024, astronomers detected an anomalous transmission from deep space, one that did not fit any known natural pattern. Was this the first sign? The second sign, according to the prophecy, would be economic in nature. The world will find itself unmoored from the foundations it once trusted, she wrote. What was strong will crumble, what was weak will be redefined. Many interpret this as a financial collapse of unprecedented scale, one that does not simply disrupt markets but fundamentally alters the global balance of power. This warning has taken on new significance as economic instability, inflation crises, and shifting financial alliances create an increasingly volatile global economy. Is this the second sign? The final sign is the most cryptic of all. She described it as a reckoning, a moment in which humanity would be forced to confront something it was not prepared for. Some believe this could be a natural disaster, a global conflict, or even an existential revelation, something that shatters the world's understanding of itself. Yet, no further details were offered, as if the prophecy deliberately left this part in shadow. She gave only one timeline: 73 days after the second sign is revealed, the world will stand at a crossroads. While it is tempting to dismiss such predictions as mere superstition, history has shown that warnings of great upheavals often contain kernels of truth. The psychic's 9/11 prophecy was ignored until it was too late to recognize its significance. If we are truly seeing the first signs of her vision unfolding, then we are left with an uncomfortable but urgent question: what, if anything, can we do to prepare? For those who turn to Buddhist philosophy for guidance, the response is not fear, but awareness. The Buddha taught that suffering arises not from external events, but from our attachment to things as they are. Change is inevitable, and wisdom lies in facing it with clarity rather than panic. Rather than asking whether the prophecy is real, the more important question may be, how do we respond to the uncertainties ahead? If this is truly a period of transformation, then the most important preparation is not stockpiling resources or clinging to outdated systems, but cultivating the resilience and wisdom to navigate whatever may come. Part 2: The Buddhist Perspective on Prophecies. Buddhism offers a unique perspective on prophecy, one that neither blindly accepts nor outright dismisses predictions of the future. Unlike many religious traditions that see prophecy as absolute, an unchangeable destiny, Buddhism teaches that the future is fluid, shaped by our collective karma and the choices we make in the present. This concept is fundamental to Buddhist philosophy, the idea that nothing is fixed, and that all things, including the fate of civilizations, are impermanent and subject to change. The Buddha himself warned against the dangers of clinging to predictions as if they were set in stone. In the Kalama Sutta, he advises his followers not to accept teachings simply because they come from authority, tradition, or sacred texts, but instead to analyze them critically and judge them based on their alignment with wisdom and ethical principles. Prophecies, therefore, should not be viewed as inevitable fates, but as possibilities, warnings, or insights that can help guide our actions. If a prophecy predicts disaster, the Buddhist approach is not to resign ourselves to doom, but to ask, what can we learn from this? What actions can we take to change the trajectory of events? In this way, prophecy becomes a tool for reflection, rather than a source of fear. The Buddha often spoke about cycles of growth, decay, and renewal, not just in the lives of individuals, but in entire societies. These cycles are not predetermined, they are driven by karma, meaning they are the natural consequences of collective human actions over time. One of the most well-known Buddhist teachings about the rise and fall of civilizations comes from the Kakavati Sutta, which describes an ongoing cycle in which societies begin in harmony, prosper through moral and ethical governance, but gradually descend into chaos as greed, corruption, and unethical behavior take over. Eventually, after reaching a breaking point, there is a reset, either through self-destruction or through the conscious efforts of awakened individuals who guide humanity back toward wisdom and ethical living. The prophecy about 2025, if viewed through this Buddhist lens, is not necessarily a warning of destruction, but rather a reminder that we are at a crossroads. If we continue down a path of greed, division, and disregard for the natural world, we may accelerate our own downfall. But if we recognize the warning signs and take meaningful action, we can shift the trajectory toward renewal and growth. This perspective aligns with the Buddhist view of impermanence, anicca. Nothing is static. Just as no single moment defines a person's life, no single event seals the fate of humanity. Buddhism teaches that everything is interconnected, and that even the smallest actions ripple outward. If an economic collapse is looming, how we respond to it will determine whether it becomes a catastrophic breakdown or a transformation into a more just and sustainable system. If a global reckoning is approaching, whether it manifests as violence or as an opportunity for collective awakening depends on our choices now. This is why Buddhism places such emphasis on mindfulness, ethical living, and wisdom, not as abstract spiritual ideals, but as practical tools for navigating uncertainty. Mindfulness allows us to stay present, rather than getting caught up in fear or speculation. Ethical living ensures that our actions contribute to harmony rather than chaos. Wisdom helps us see clearly, distinguishing between what is real and what is illusion. These three qualities form the foundation of what the Buddha called the middle way, a path of balance that avoids both blind optimism and paralyzing fear. Rather than being overwhelmed by predictions of doom, Buddhism encourages us to take them as opportunities for introspection. What are we afraid of? Why do certain prophecies resonate with us? What societal weaknesses are being exposed by these warnings, and how can we address them? Instead of focusing on external events beyond our control, the Buddhist approach directs attention inward, to the transformation of the mind and heart. Because ultimately, the external world is a reflection of the collective consciousness of its people. If enough individuals cultivate mindfulness, ethical integrity, and wisdom, the entire course of human history can shift. For this reason, if the 2025 prophecy is to be taken seriously, it should not be seen as a death sentence, but as a wake-up call. It is a chance for humanity to evolve, to recognize where we have strayed from balance, and to take conscious steps toward a better future. The Buddha often taught that the darkest moments, whether in an individual's life or in the life of a civilization, are not endings, but moments of potential transformation. A prophecy that foretells crisis is not necessarily a prophecy of destruction. If met with wisdom and right action, it can instead mark the beginning of renewal. Part 3: The Three Signs and Their Meaning. The prophecy describes three major signs that will serve as warnings before a transformative event in 2025. Whether one believes in prophecies or not, it is undeniable that human civilization is currently undergoing profound changes, scientific, economic, and existential. These three signs, when analyzed through a Buddhist lens, reveal deeper truths about impermanence, interconnectedness, and the illusion of control. Each sign serves as an invitation to reflect on our individual and collective actions, emphasizing that the future is not predetermined but shaped by the choices we make. The first sign, the cosmic signal, is particularly intriguing because it challenges our understanding of reality. In December 2024, astronomers detected an inexplicable transmission from deep space, one that did not match any natural pattern known to science. The prophecy refers to this as the opening of the door to awakening, suggesting that this event is not merely an astronomical anomaly, but something deeply significant to the evolution of human consciousness. Could it be a message? A warning? Or something beyond human comprehension? While many might immediately jump to conclusions about extraterrestrial life, Buddhism encourages us to look at this event with mindfulness rather than fear. Buddhist cosmology has long described the universe as vast and filled with innumerable realms of existence. In the Lotus Sutra, the Buddha speaks of countless worlds, each with its own beings and conditions, some far more advanced than ours. The existence of other forms of life, or even higher intelligence, is not dismissed but rather considered a natural part of the infinite cycles of existence. If this signal is indeed a form of contact from another civilization, then it is not necessarily something to fear. It could be an opportunity for greater understanding. However, even if the signal is purely a natural cosmic phenomenon, it still serves a purpose. It reminds us of our insignificance in the grand scale of the universe and reinforces the Buddhist principle of interconnectedness. More importantly, this event forces humanity to ask difficult questions. Are we truly ready to encounter something beyond ourselves? Would our collective ego allow us to accept that we are not the pinnacle of existence, but just one small part of an interconnected web of life? The Buddhist perspective would suggest that the true challenge is not in deciphering the message, but in examining our response to it. If something monumental is on the horizon, will we react with fear, aggression, and division? Or will we approach it with wisdom, openness, and a willingness to learn? This is the deeper lesson. Awakening is not about external discoveries but about inner readiness. Whether or not the signal carries meaning, its impact will depend entirely on how we, as a species, choose to interpret and respond to it. The second sign, the predicted economic collapse, shakes the very foundation of human civilization. According to the prophecy, this event will be unlike any previous financial crisis. While some see the shift toward a more unified global financial system as progress, others view it as a collapse of long-standing power structures. Regardless of where one stands, it is clear that the economic world is changing rapidly, with digital currencies, automation, and new financial paradigms reshaping the landscape. From a Buddhist standpoint, this event is not surprising. The belief in a stable economy is an illusion, one that history has shattered repeatedly. The Buddha taught that all things are impermanent, annexed, and nowhere is this more evident than in material wealth. The Jataka tales, which recount the Buddha's past lives, often illustrate how rulers, merchants, and even entire civilizations lost everything overnight. These stories emphasize a critical Buddhist lesson: attachment to material wealth is one of the greatest sources of suffering, dukkha. Those who base their happiness and identity on financial security are setting themselves up for inevitable pain because wealth, like all things, is subject to change. Buddhism does not advocate for poverty, nor does it reject wealth. Instead, it promotes a skillful relationship with money, one that is based on ethical living, generosity, and adaptability. In times of economic turmoil, those who live simply, cultivate mindfulness, and practice generosity will weather the storm far better than those who cling to their wealth in fear. The Buddha spoke of right livelihood, samajiva, as a key part of the Noble Eightfold Path, emphasizing that financial success should never come at the expense of others. If the prophecy's prediction of economic collapse comes true, the Buddhist response is clear: adapt, simplify, and practice generosity. The more we resist change, the more suffering we create for ourselves. The more we embrace impermanence and focus on ethical resilience, the more we prepare ourselves for any transition that may come. The third sign, the final reckoning, is the most cryptic and perhaps the most profound. According to the prophecy, 73 days after the second sign, the world will face a moment of reckoning. The specifics remain unclear, leading to widespread speculation. Some believe it refers to a natural disaster on an unprecedented scale. Others fear it signifies a global conflict, an existential crisis, or even the unveiling of a truth so transformative that society itself will not remain the same. Buddhism teaches that great transitions are not just external events, but internal awakenings. Perhaps this reckoning is not a single catastrophic event, but a collective moment of realization. If we look beyond the dramatic interpretations, this could represent a point of choice for humanity, a crossroads where we must decide how to move forward as a civilization. Will we continue down a path dominated by greed, division, and destruction? Or will we choose a different path, one of wisdom, unity, and compassion? Historically, Buddhist teachings have emphasized that humanity has faced such crossroads before. The Kakavati Sutta describes how societies rise and fall based on their moral conduct. When selfishness, violence, and dishonesty become the norm, civilizations collapse under their own weight. However, these cycles are not destined to repeat. If people recognize their mistakes and make a conscious effort to cultivate ethical living, society can shift toward renewal instead of destruction. If the prophecy holds truth, then the reckoning may be our own collective awakening, a moment in which humanity is forced to confront itself, to see clearly the consequences of its actions. This could be terrifying for many, as the ego resists change. But for those who have trained their minds in awareness, ethical action, and compassion, such a moment would not be the end, it would be the beginning of a new way of living. Ultimately, the three signs outlined in the prophecy do not have to be warnings of doom. They can be seen as messages urging us to wake up, to recognize our illusions, and to embrace change rather than fear it. The cosmic signal reminds us of our small place in the universe and challenges us to grow beyond our limited perspectives. The economic shift exposes the impermanence of material wealth and urges us to build a society based on ethical prosperity rather than greed. The final reckoning offers us a chance to redefine humanity's trajectory, to choose wisdom over ignorance, compassion over division, and understanding over fear. Buddhism does not tell us what will happen in 2025, but it does teach us how to prepare for uncertainty. The future is not something that happens to us, it is something we create through our collective actions, thoughts, and decisions. The signs are not meant to instill fear, they are meant to awaken responsibility. Whether the prophecy unfolds as predicted or not, its message remains relevant, change is inevitable. The only question that remains is how we will respond to it. Part 4, The Buddhist Response, Preparing for 2025 and Beyond. As we approach an uncertain future, whether shaped by prophecy or by the natural course of history, one thing remains undeniable: the world is changing. Buddhism offers profound wisdom on how to prepare for such transitions, emphasizing inner stability over external circumstances. Instead of reacting with fear, anxiety, or attachment, the Buddhist approach centers on cultivating resilience, ethical living, and compassion. These principles serve as a foundation for navigating not only 2025 but any moment of upheaval. The Buddha never encouraged his followers to escape reality or ignore the inevitable changes of life. Rather, he taught mindfulness, wisdom, and ethical conduct as tools for maintaining clarity even in the face of chaos. The first and most important preparation is strengthening inner awareness. In a time when the external world feels unstable, the mind must become an anchor. Meditation is not merely a practice for monks in isolation. It is a powerful tool for developing mental clarity, emotional balance, and resilience. The Buddha taught that when the mind is calm, even the most terrifying events lose their ability to control us. This is not about ignoring difficulties, but about training the mind to respond with wisdom rather than panic. When we meditate, we create space between stimulus and reaction, allowing us to make decisions based on insight rather than fear. Scientific research has already demonstrated the tangible benefits of meditation. from reducing stress and anxiety to increasing focus and emotional regulation. In Buddhist practice, mindfulness, sati, is not just about sitting in stillness, it is about training ourselves to be fully present in every moment. This practice becomes particularly crucial when facing uncertainty. A person who cultivates mindfulness and equanimity, upekkha, will not be easily swayed by external crises, but will instead remain steady, making rational decisions and offering guidance to others. Imagine a storm raging outside. Those without an inner foundation will be swept away by the winds of fear and confusion. But those who have trained their minds to be still, like a deeply rooted tree, will withstand the storm without losing their balance. Beyond meditation, cultivating ethical living is crucial. In times of global instability, those who live by moral principles become beacons of stability and trust. The 5 precepts of Buddhism serve as a practical guide for living with integrity. 1. Avoid harming others. 2. Speak truthfully. 3. Live with generosity. 4. Maintain mindfulness. And 5. Act with integrity. These precepts are not restrictive commandments, but rather guiding principles that ensure a life of harmony and wisdom. The Buddha taught that ethical conduct is not just about personal virtue, it is about creating conditions for peace and trust in society. When people live ethically, communities thrive. The first precept, avoiding harm, is particularly relevant in a world where fear often leads to violence. The natural reaction to uncertainty is self-preservation, which can manifest in aggression, selfishness, and division. However, Buddhism teaches that true safety does not come from controlling external circumstances but from fostering non-harm and compassion. Choosing non-violence, ahimsa, does not mean passivity. It means responding to conflict with wisdom rather than aggression. It is easy to become consumed by the idea of survival, but the real question is, what kind of world are we surviving for? If we sacrifice our humanity in times of crisis, we create a future built on fear rather than wisdom. Truthfulness, the second precept, is equally vital. In an era of misinformation, deception, and manipulation, speaking with honesty and integrity is a revolutionary act. Buddhism warns against false speech and divisive words, not only because they cause harm, but because they distort reality. When fear spreads, people grasp at anything that provides a sense of control, often turning to lies, conspiracy theories, or deception to justify their actions. But truth, spoken with wisdom and compassion, is what allows clarity to emerge. The Buddha encouraged his followers to engage in right speech, meaning speech that is truthful, beneficial, and spoken at the right time. In times of uncertainty, those who remain grounded in truth rather than fear-mongering will become sources of wisdom and stability. The third precept, generosity, reminds us that our true wealth lies not in what we accumulate, but in what we give. Economic instability, one of the major signs of the prophecy, naturally leads to hoarding and selfishness. But Buddhism teaches that clinging to material possessions only deepens suffering. Those who are generous, even in times of scarcity, cultivate an abundance mindset. The practice of dana, giving, is central to Buddhist ethics, reinforcing that true security is found not in possessions, but in human connections. One of the most overlooked but powerful ways to prepare for uncertainty is building compassionate communities. No individual can face the future alone. Buddhism places great emphasis on the Sangha, community of practitioners, recognizing that spiritual growth and resilience are strengthened through relationships. When people come together with the intention of supporting one another, sharing resources, and fostering kindness, they create a buffer against fear and despair. History has shown that in times of crisis, communities that emphasize cooperation over competition survive and rebuild far more effectively. In difficult times, it is not fear that will save us, it is compassion. The Dalai Lama once said, Love and compassion are necessities, not luxuries. Without them, humanity cannot survive. This statement is not just philosophical, it is practical survival wisdom. People who act with compassion build trust, resilience, and cooperation, which are the foundations of a stable society. Those who give in to selfishness and paranoia, however, accelerate their own suffering and isolation. True preparation for the future is not stockpiling material goods, but stockpiling goodwill, creating relationships that ensure mutual support, emotional resilience, and collective well-being. Buddhism also teaches the importance of letting go of fear and attachment. Change is inevitable. Those who cling to power, money, and control will suffer the most because they are fighting against a natural flow of impermanence. The Buddha described clinging as the root of suffering, whether it be clinging to wealth, relationships, beliefs, or identities. In uncertain times, people who cannot accept change will experience extreme anxiety and despair. But those who embrace impermanence will move through challenges with grace, adaptability, and peace. Letting go does not mean becoming passive or indifferent. It means developing inner flexibility, the ability to face change without being emotionally paralyzed by it. Think of water. It adapts to any container, moves around obstacles, and flows effortlessly through change. A rigid mind, like a stone, will break under pressure. But a flexible mind, like water, will find a way forward. This is why Buddhist teachings emphasize detachment not from life itself, but from unrealistic expectations of permanence. The prophecy about 2025 may or may not unfold as predicted, but Buddhist wisdom remains relevant regardless. Whether facing personal challenges or global crises, the fundamental principles remain the same: cultivate awareness, live ethically, build compassionate connections, and let go of fear. True preparation is not about predicting the future, it is about developing the inner strength to face whatever comes. The greatest lesson Buddhism offers is that suffering is not caused by external events alone, but by our reaction to them. The future may be uncertain, but our ability to respond with wisdom is always within our control. We have reached the end of this journey, but in many ways, the real journey is just beginning. We are not merely spectators to history. We are its creators. Whether or not this prophecy is real, one truth remains undeniable: the world is changing. And while we cannot control the tides of transformation, we can control how we navigate them. Buddhism teaches us that fear paralyzes, but wisdom liberates. If we allow ourselves to be consumed by uncertainty, we surrender our agency. But if we meet change with clarity, resilience, and ethical action, we reclaim our power. The Buddha once said, "What you think, you become. What you feel, you attract. What you imagine, you create." The greatest prophecy is not one that tells us what will happen. It is the one that reminds us of our power to shape the outcome. The future is not something that happens to us, it is something that emerges from our collective actions, thoughts, and decisions. So I leave you with one final question, perhaps the most important question of all. How will you choose to face 2025? Let's continue this conversation in the comments. What are your thoughts on this prophecy? Do you believe we are heading toward transformation, crisis, or awakening? Share your insights, and if you found value in this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more explorations into wisdom, history, and the mysteries of existence. Until next time, stay aware, stay resilient, and remember, the future is in your hands.